Well, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order.
Mrs. Gray.
Yes.
Mrs. Brown.
Here.
Mrs. Lee.
Present.
Mrs. Sims.
Present. Having received our minutes, is there a motion to approve? Let's begin with the agenda first. Approve the agenda as submitted to us. Second by Dora. Roll, please.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Mrs. Grant.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Mrs. Sims.
Yes. And then next, we'll have the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as submitted to us? So moved by Jackie, a second by Dora.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Mrs. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Mrs. Sims.
Yes. I think because we don't have someone from Margaret, we'll move back to that when Heather or Steve are here. But Ryan, do you have anything that you care to report regarding the sponsor?
So the quality practices was completed and Margaret uploaded that by the end of May. Deadline that we had there, and then now pretty much the next deadline is the sponsor compliance review again in June, and we pretty much have everything set for that. Feel really good about where we're at. We've been working ahead. One last item that we need to upload is in regards to sunshine laws. One certificate. I think everything will be complete then after that.
Yes, and I explained to Ryan that Ken is scheduled to take that training with Ed, so that will be completed by June 30th. So that would be good. We have no public present for public participation. Thank you for reinstating that in our agenda. And we'll move on to board member liaison reports. Under President's report, really the main thing that I have is I'm continuing to pour through those policies. I've gotten through the 300s and now I'm working on the 400s just to identify and highlight for Adam what needs to be revised. And we hope to have those ready for the July board meeting. Also under legislative report, there's a lot of things going on legislatively right now, especially in terms of school safety. So we're watching all of that, and I'm sure you'll be getting reports on legislation. Is everyone getting those reports from the Ohio School Board Association? Are you, Jackie? Does any liaison have anything else to report for this meeting?
I have not.
All right, we'll move on to the treasurer's report.
Okay.
Good report.
The first item I have, I'm going to do my best to explain this in simplest terms, so bear with me. I've been working with energy alliances to look at what we pay for gas right now. Gas prices, I think everybody knows, are currently skyrocketing. Energy alliances is they partner with OASBO, which is how they identified us as a school that they could reach out to. And I did verify also, like through their website, that the consultant that was reaching out for me does in fact work for them. I just wanted to be careful. If you look at the bill that I attached on the back side, so the top of it says 13-month usage history on the back. And in that detailed charges section, you'll see that there's kind of two different sections, well, three, I guess, but the top two are the charges that are through Columbia Gas of Ohio. So if we change gas suppliers, those would not change. Those remain the same. Columbia of Ohio would still be our servicer because they're in our area. The one thing that we have the option of thinking about changing is the supplier. So right now we're on what's called just standard choice offer through Columbia Gas. So we get charged per the unit the CCF per the gas unit that we use, as well as right now, you can see under total current utility charges, if you look at that small paragraph, we are currently actually being charged sales tax. We should be tax exempt. And then also, if you read the last sentence where it says, plus the retail price adjustment of $1.65 divided by 10. So essentially, they're multiplying our gas usage by 0.165, which is Columbia Gas's standard rate offer right now. And it doesn't affect, it's not affecting us a ton right now because our gas usage is very high. But when you look at those winter months when your gas usage is really high, it does add up. If we were to lock in a rate through Energy Alliances, the bid that I was given today, what I would like to look at, let me start with that. I would like to look at doing what's called the NYMEX. We would lock in a rate for a year, and it's just the retail price adjustment. It's just that adder that we're looking at. The price of gas is always set. We would be looking at locking in with someone at a constant adder. So the offer that I got today for 12 months, it would start in July of 22, and our adder, instead of the 0.165, would be 0.134, which is significantly lower. And in your higher months, that does make an impact. The risk that you take on here is that Columbia's gas rate, the 0.165, their adder, that will stay constant until April. That's when it changes. The same with ours, the same with the 0.134. It would stay constant until April. We do run the risk of, in April, Columbia, let's say they come down further than the 0.134. So for 3 months, until we can find a new rate in July, for 3 months, we'd be paying a higher rate if that happened. Now, something to think about though, is that again, those are the months we're using the least amount of gas. We're not using a lot of gas in the summer. Our high months are in the winter. So we would definitely be saving in the winter because that 0.165 through Columbia Gas, that's staying constant through the winter, and our 0.134 would also stay constant. So to me, I don't think there's a huge risk with doing that, and we would also get our tax exemption, and that extra sales tax cost is knocked off, which is helpful. We would sign a contract with the supplier that we would go with. We are not invoiced by Energy Alliances. We pay them nothing for bringing this to us. They get paid through the suppliers. So that was another thing I asked about. I said, is there some kind of associated fee? Like we obviously don't want to be paying extra for that, but we wouldn't be. They get paid through the supplier on their own terms. So I guess I just wanted to gauge what kind of interest we have in pursuing this. If anybody thinks, maybe we're safer just sticking it out and seeing how gas prices fluctuate. I didn't feel comfortable. The other option beyond the NYMEX pricing that I just presented, you can do where you lock in at a rate for, it doesn't fluctuate with the gas rate like this low. It's not based on the adder, it's based on you lock in at an actual gas rate. I didn't feel super comfortable because to get a good price, you had to do multiple years, and I didn't feel comfortable making that prediction of where gas will go. I do think gas is going to stay high for quite a bit through the year. So I think the 0.134 offer is good. The other risk is that the market's very volatile. So tomorrow when I get rates, it might be different than the 0.134. I can't guarantee that that's the price I'll get tomorrow, and you have to lock in the day of. So I made it clear I wanted to present it to my board. I didn't want to just lock in a rate. I wanted to discuss it. But just if we decide we want to move forward with it, I might not get that rate tomorrow. It might be slightly higher. It might be 0.144, 1.154. But again, we would have a lower adder all the way through April, and we might still have a lower adder. It just depends on what Columbia Gas of Ohio would do in April. I don't think
What's your pleasure? What are your thoughts?
So the adder that we have with Columbia Gas right now has been the same for how long?
It's every year.
It's every year. So it's been constant. It's been the same. So they haven't changed it or raised it or done anything.
So if you look at this page right here, this second middle chart gives a history of what their adder is. So it's 0.165 right now. It was 0.17, so a little bit higher before then. You can see it was significantly lower. But I think with the way the market is right now, I don't see it coming down to a 0.10. And again, if we were slightly higher come April, we would only be that way for 3 months because we're only locked in from July to July. And those are our lowest gas months. So I don't feel like we'd be losing out on a lot of money. But again, open for discussion. I wanted to bring it to you and just hear everyone's opinions on it.
Well, it sounds like the negative impact is minimal.
That's how I
Minimal,
feel.
minimal risk, and we have the opportunity to make a significant difference.
During those winter months.
Right. During those winter months.
If you look at his email page that I attached also, he's got his personal recommendation and I feel like it lays it out pretty well. It's kind of what I just explained to you, but in his terms.
So after the 12 months, we'd be able to reevaluate.
Yes, so
Columbia is
next,
the way to go, then we go back to them.
right, and we'll still be getting our gas through Columbia. It's just the supplier. It's
Right.
just that bottom part. So I'll still get billed by Columbia. And yeah, we're only logged in through July. So he says your rate would float on the NYMEX, but you're guaranteed 19% savings through April 2023 because your adder is lower. If Columbia Gas's adder dips in April 2023, it's not gonna cost us much because we use little to no gas during that time of year. So what he told me was if the gas adders, if they are dipping in April, that's a good time to lock in a new rate for July. So we could lock in something lower that come July, we would also be lower.
My question also is, does this Energy Alliance also deal with electricity then? Did he present a proposal
So
for
he-
Ohio Edison?
He had me submit bills, but we didn't get too deep into, he made it sound like he wasn't getting bids that were worth looking at, like it wasn't gonna be very much savings. He felt that the gas was where we were gonna see a difference. I did submit Ohio Edison bills, I think 4 of them, like leading up to our meeting, our initial meeting.
Well, that's good, because he's showing discretion,
Yeah,
you know, in terms of our dealings.
yeah, I really like the consultant that I worked with,
Does anyone have any objections to go see for some?
Nothing, it's the way to go,
Yeah.
save us money.
okay, so I'm gonna email him first thing in the morning, and he said he'll get me the rates first thing in the morning. And we'll go from there, so we'll see if they're lower again, and if they are, we can look at pursuing it then.
Very good.
Okay. All right, next, in your packet. On this first page, is just an email correspondence that I had, about our ARPS or our SA3. I can give everyone a minute or two to read it if you'd like. And there's a second page also. It was a relief to me because that's one of the concerns I've had for some years. So essentially, we got a comment just saying, if you're gonna continue to pay existing staff, you need documentation. And this is something that we've discussed at previous meetings that I've stressed, you know, I'm nervous that they might say you can't continue to just pay staff out of it. And so our predictions were based on the assumption that we were going to be able to. And when I gave my reply, she said your financial forecast showing that in coming years without your grant reimbursement, you'd be at a deficit that is sufficient. So that was a relief to me because it's something that we were concerned about. I do have a little bit more good news. I resubmitted our ESSER 2 budget, and I had noticed on part of the budgeting and in part of the documentation saying what you can spend on, there was some information about attendance officers and resource officers. And I put in our budget comments, we would like to retroactively pay our attendance officer through this year. He's in charge of putting kids on attendance plans, watching truancy, making sure our remote learners are on track, that sort of thing. And our resource officer, I think I justified by saying, you know, we feel like we've seen an increase in discipline. There's really a need to have a full-time resource officer here. COVID has made kids anxious. And our budget got approved this morning. And I don't have their salary or benefits for June yet, but as of May, with our resource officer and our attendance officer, it'll be about $91,000 that we'll be putting into ESSER that were expenses this year. So that was great news. That was very relieving. I also sat in on the community school fiscal roundtable today. They gave some information about the new funding formula. They didn't mention any changes. They were just kind of giving some advisement on when to expect, if they'll come out with a calculator to calculate budgeting for next year. They don't have it ready yet. One thing that they did discuss was the ESSER 3 allocation. So after the fiscal year ends, all of the grants get reallocated for the next year. I do think there's potential that our ESSER 3 could be slightly lower because our enrollment decreased from fiscal year 21 to 22. But our ESSER 3 allocation was also 2.9 million, which is very high. So I'll give you an update when we get that information about how it falls. They also discussed the use of your other grants. You know, I think they said something along the lines of, with all the ESSER money, we feel like schools are kind of neglecting the other grants that are available. Please contact us if you need assistance with this. And so I reached out because, as we talked about, probably more towards the beginning of the year when we looked at our grant spreadsheet, with COVID, when there was 100% carryover and we didn't use a lot of grant money at all last year, we were left with very large sums of money that we were not going to be able to spend, you know, because of the supplement not supplant. You can't just put expenses into them. So we did our best to use it where we could. Our Reach Success Coordinator, which is $8,000 a month, we pay that through Title I. Joe Carney got put into Title I. We weren't able to spend IDA because our maintenance of effort got jacked up so high when we claimed 100% FTE. So we couldn't use our IDA funding because we have to meet maintenance of effort. So I did reach out to the contact and just asked him to review what we've got. I explained the scenario that, you know, I took over in July or August, and a lot of grant money was transferred over. Can you give me some advisement on where to go from here? And I have a meeting with him on Thursday. So I'm hopeful that, yeah, we can have a further conversation about our grant allocation. But positive correspondence with OD.
It's pretty good.
Felt good.
Yeah.
We discussed, and you'll see it on our spreadsheet for the month, we discussed how we were going to be taking Kristen Ballo and Johanna Pachoki's salary and benefits out of IDA and into the general fund to help meet maintenance effort. And we talked about how you'll see salary and benefits inflated for May. And you do, they are inflated. Overall, the expenses still look good, but that is going to, when I make that change this month, that's really going to help offset that cost. We're seeing that come out of the general fund, but then we're taking away that expense from the general fund. So it'll really help offset that, which is great. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay.
Gratitude, thank you for persisting.
No problem. We can go ahead and skip past it. Our first page is our cash reconciliation. You can see we ended the month of May with a balance of 5.6 million about. Our bank account's still looking very healthy. I feel like that's a number we are still feeling really excited to see. On our disbursement summary, There wasn't really anything out of the ordinary this month that I felt needed pointed out. Our outstanding disbursement summary, nothing too out of the ordinary. And then it should go to the spreadsheet. All right, so month of May, we did see low revenue again. That was expected. We knew that was gonna happen because of the adjustment that they made. Our overall revenue for the year, if you look in the top left category in that middle column, it is significantly higher than what we thought at the beginning of the year. It still is above, significantly above 5 million, so that was great. In the bottom right section, this is where you'll see those inflated salaries and benefits. Again, this is due to moving both Johanna and Kristen Bello to the general fund. We will see that decrease when we look at June because Lyric's gonna be coming out, so that'll help offset that. Also inflated this month was our other objects, our 800s. A big portion of our Margaret bill is in the 800s, it's coded in the 800s, and we actually paid May and June in May. So June is already paid for, so you'll see a lower percentage in June, and that'll offset that. In the bottom left, when we look at total expenses, you can see our total general fund expense percentage is about 81%. 11 months through the fiscal year, you would expect to be at about 92%. So we're doing good there. We're lower than what we thought or than what we expected. And again, even though the May is a negative month, and that does look like a high negative number, our totals for the year are still looking positive.
So the expenditures that's driving that to be a negative number are what?
I think it's more the revenue is having a bigger impact because they took away that 700,000 that they overpaid us. So we're seeing such a lower monthly payment because they're essentially taking that back. So I think it's more that the revenue is just a lower number. And this month's expenses are high because of those inflated, the salaries, the benefits, and the other objects. So the inflation there from moving the expenses into the general fund and paying 2 Margaret bills are causing the expenses to be higher than normal. And then our revenue is lower than what it would be if they hadn't done that overpayment. So it's a low revenue number. I don't think we're anticipating seeing 127,000 as a monthly payment when we go into next fiscal year. It's because they're taking back that 700,000 still.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? I have one more item on my report. And that is a resolution to establish temporary appropriations for fiscal year 2023 at 25% of the fiscal year expenditures for July 2022 through September 20th of 2022. So all that this is that we don't typically approve the yearly budget for fiscal year 23 until September. And so in the meantime, until we approve those expenditures, this is giving me permission to take 25% of what we spent last year, about a quarter of our year, for those 3 months of July, August, and September, and be able to spend up to that amount. It's just giving me permission to spend that money until we get our formal budget approved.
This is something we're doing.
Yes, every year.
Yeah. Are there any questions then? If not, is there a motion to approve action items A through D of the treasurer?
I'll approve.
Second by Dora, can I have the roll please?
Mr. Paloma,
Yes.
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes. Very good, thank you, Kelsey. We continue to be grateful for you. And Ryan, we'll move on to your report recommendations.
First of all, under informational items, the first item is review of our current enrollment data, which can be found in your folder this evening. take a look here, we've had 97 graduates as of today. We have 97 graduates this school year currently, but probably some more to come throughout the summer. And our enrollment is 486 students as of today. All but one of those students currently reside in our 6-county radius. We still have one student with us from Upper Sandusky, the Upper Sandusky School District. But everyone else lives in school districts that fall within the 6-county radius. Informational item B is in regards to the Ohio improvement process. So right now, we're going through a process, we're working with the state support team, where we have to come up with our goals for next year. And these goals tie to different federal funds that we receive then as well. So the first thing we had to do is come up with a one needs assessment where we do a thorough review of many different areas, try to basically focus on what are the target areas that we're going to focus on. And we had a team approach doing that with our building leadership team, broke down the different parts, and then we worked through a Google Doc and came back together and met and talked about those items. And basically the 3 items that it looks like that we're going to be focusing on this upcoming year is improving math achievement, improving our English language arts achievement, and then also increasing career readiness for our students, which we have taken a big step in that area this past year with career readiness, but we want to continue to do that to make sure that all kids are connected with their ideal future career that best fits them. So the next phase after the one needs assessment is now the one plan, and we're currently working on that, coming up with, so we've got the 3 target areas. For each target area, there will be 3 different strategies, and within each of those 3 strategies, there will be 3 action steps as well. So we're working through that right now. Once we get that part done, then we'll work with Kelsey on plugging in the financial numbers that tie to that, requesting those federal funds, so that coincide with our goals for the CCIP portion of that.
And we discussed during the team meeting, the building leadership team meeting, as we were writing goals, we kept in mind what we're paying for right now out of Title I and which grant's paying for our PBIS and things like that. And we were trying to word the goals in a way that what we're doing supports that, so we can keep spending that money out of those grants and also, continue to spend more as we identify more need.
Any questions on the Ohio improvement process?
No, other than a comment. As Ryan and I talked about this today, the other thing that I said to him that what we will do as a board is reevaluate our goals that we had set last year and construct goals for the board that also coincide with the goals that we have for the academics and the career readiness. So those we'll be considering in July as well.
And then the last item here that I'd like to discuss this evening is school safety update. Obviously, there's been a tragic number of school shootings, just public shootings. Just it's sad with what's going on right now in our country, and we want to always reflect on what we're doing, make sure we're doing everything to ensure that our learning environment is as safe as possible. A couple things that we're looking to do next year. We had installed our buzzer system a year ago up front, and we had then hired somebody for the front door to monitor that, which has been a huge addition for us. And we did not end up using that buzzer system throughout this year, but we'd like to utilize that next year. And the 2 indoor systems that unlock the door are actually the 2 side offices, one in Robin's office and the other in the enrollment office on the other side. But now that we have somebody working at that front door, which we did not have at the time of installation, we think that it would be wise for us to add a 3rd buzzer where Becky Weedhalf is sitting there at the front door. But she's going to be the one that's probably going to unlock that for most of the time. So we're working with RJ Beck. We've got a quote for that. We're looking at different options. We're also gonna look into if there's an option for a remote option off of what currently exists, to see if maybe that's an option, if so, if it's a cheaper option to go. I think I do have some feedback on that. I was looking at my emails right before this. They weren't, RJ Beck was not real confident in that product, the online product. But I went back to him and said, let's take a look. You know, if it's part of our current package, let's take a look at it, try it out and see. So we'll see what he says in return.
I said to Ryan, it seemed to me that when the building was designed, and we discussed that, having the buzzer was purposefully put out of reach of the students and placed into offices for safety reasons. It's not convenient though, the way we're operating now with the person at the front door and the people that are, whose offices are there, they have their offices structured in such a way that they're far away from those buzzers as opposed to being right there. Like you'll see in some schools where the secretary is going to admit people, have the monitor to be able to see what's going on either on the computer or on a screen, and the buzzer is just beside them. I don't know how yours is set up?
Yeah, the doorbell there, and you have to actually go and let them in.
Okay, so you don't have that buzz in. So when we talked about a remote, when our person, Becky, in this case, is not at the door, then we're leaving that buzzer unattended. Now, she's there much of the time, but that was a concern that I expressed to Ryan, because that's why we put those in the offices. So when he and I talked about, gosh, a remote that she could use while she's sitting there, but one that could then be placed in the office when someone's not there, seemed to be a logical solution, but you know, maybe that won't be. But I am concerned about the buzzer allowing people in to be left unattended. Or can we turn it off? And no, you can't turn it off. Unless they could engineer an on and off switch for that buzzer system. So the one left outside of those two offices could be deactivated when someone's not there by the door.
Is it like in the wall? The buzzer? Like what,
Yeah, I believe.
Yeah.
could you like encase it in something that would lock? You know, like, I'm just thinking of, like
Right.
clocks on the wall, they have something that cases, like
Right.
if we have something face over it that could lock. If worse came to worse and we really needed to install the buzzer, I mean, maybe that would be.
Yeah, that would be another possibility.
Something that like,
Like thermostat, sometimes they'll cover it with lock.
yeah, so if it was something that we could lock when she leaves and then we wouldn't be.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That might be possible.
Yeah.
The other thing in regards to school safety that I think we need to discuss and possibly consider is moving from a half-time school resource officer to a full-time school resource officer. So what we have done the past few years is we've shared a resource officer with Margaret. When the village police department was closed down, the Erie County Sheriff's substation in the elementary was taken out, and now they use the police station here downtown. So the resource officer they used to have at the elementary is no longer there. Matt McPeak, our resource officer, is actually going between three buildings, the elementary, the high school, and here. And we're sharing that resource officer half-time. Ed Kurt's had discussion with Sheriff Sixworth already about getting a full-time resource officer back out at the elementary. And I think that's a good idea. That doesn't change anything here really though, because Matt is still being shared between the high school and here. Maybe here a little bit more because he doesn't have to work in the elementary. But you know, it's still not the same as having somebody in here 100% of the time. And you know, you just, if something were to happen, you hate to have it delay 3 minutes and have it call, you know, by that time, who knows what the situation might look like. I think it would be wise, since we have ESSER funds. And Kelsey just shared tonight that she's able to put the resource officer under those ESSER funds for at least the next 2 years. We can continue to do that and have a full-time resource officer, and maybe reevaluate in a couple of years how that's working out, where our funds are.
I think, just to add to that, particularly in our environment where we have the open offices with no doors and glass walls, I think it would go a long way just in not only making students feel more safe, but also your staff.
Yeah, when you talk about Alice training, you know, the lockdown portion as an option is really hard because you can't lock down when you've got open rooms and glass walls. So you really need to evacuate, if at all possible, from one of the exits. So definitely, I think it's definitely something worthy of considering. Full-time resource officer, I think wise of us. I don't see much negativity with that if we would go that route, because especially we have the funds right now through ESSER for a couple of years. But I wanted to bring that to your attention and seek your feedback.
What are your thoughts?
I think it's a good idea.
Yes, especially with everything that's going on, and the children that we deal with, you know, they have so many problems. Just never know.
And I think the other problem that we have when someone's not here all the time is they don't get to know the kids as well. And so that's being divided as well. So those relationships are not forming in the same way. It's seen more as a police officer as opposed to a real resource officer that the kids can go to because they don't know him as well. And it's nothing against Matthew because I'm sure he does the best that he can. But if we're being divided, okay. I'm sorry, let me just say to the people watching, I would apologize, we had some technology difficulties. We're now recording and projecting the meeting, so I apologize for that. No action or anything was occurred during that intermission, I guess. Jackie, go ahead with your question.
No, like I said, I just was wondering about the door being unlocked, like when we're in session. There might be some concern from the board members.
Where does the projection of the camera of people at the door go?
We do have a camera out in front. We've got one in the lobby area too. So
Where does that, where
does
can
go?
it be viewed?
We can bring it up on the laptop.
That's what I thought. So you'd be able to put it on a split screen or something up here, so to know if someone was downstairs.
Or just a laptop here. Okay, somebody's monitoring that.
And we could put signs too, if it's sending a board meeting, wait till he goes in, just so people are aware that they're not just locked out.
But
You'd have to look into, it is a public meeting.
that's a good question for him. Security versus access. How we handle that, I'm sure there's a way to handle that.
So then in addition to the two items I brought up about school safety, the school resource officer, the locking of the front doors for next year. Also, the state has come out with, I believe, $13 million towards school safety that they're going to be putting out there for grant applications. That is definitely something that we're going to look into applying for. We did hear back on one of the grants that we applied for camera system, and we did not receive those funds. So maybe this grant is a source of revenue that we can use for those cameras.
Did we get any feedback as to why the grant was denied?
I don't think we get to David helps out a lot with those grants.
Did you get their rejection?
No, that went to you.
I don't believe, I think it was just a general rejection.
Yeah, oh, it was Ryan.
Yeah, I must have forwarded it to you.
Yeah, it was like 2 sentences.
Now, schools that did receive money from that that grant, I think are eligible for the new grant that's coming out.
So, yeah. Well, you heard all of us say that we certainly would consider a full-time resource officer. So, something to explore.
And I guess one final thing, at one of our graduation ceremonies this afternoon, I thought it was pretty neat. One of the family members of one of the graduates came up to me and she told me that she watches all of our board meetings online. And I told her, that's great to hear. It's the first person who told me that they are online watching our board meetings. So that was pretty neat. Yep.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yes. Oh, yeah, we did receive an email from Stussy, the Family Health Services. We've been waiting for them to find somebody to provide us with those mental health services here in the building for our students. And they said that they have somebody that's going to be starting on August 15th. So we're looking forward to that. That would be a great addition for our students.
And you want to talk about our meeting today?
Yeah, so many meetings there, trying to bring it back here. Okay, yes, we met with, I had about 5 minutes. So we had a meeting first thing this morning with OGO, with Kendra Faulkner from OGO. OGO helps run food pantries in the area for different groups, organizations, schools, and they are extremely interested in working with our school and providing pantry options for our students. We're going to do a test run here this summer. We're going to get some supplies here, food items and health products over the next few weeks and try that out with the students that are coming in over the summer. And look to hopefully implement that full go come the fall for the next school year. Now, our open house is going to be on Wednesday, August 24th, and we're looking at 4 to 7 p.m. And remember last year, our open house was extremely well attended by probably about 200 families. So we're hoping for the same thing this year. But OGO is going to bring their bus and have it parked out front here during our open house. They're going to have food items available, pantry items for students and their families, and we're going to really hopefully use that opportunity to make students and their families aware of OGO and the opportunities that they have.
The school bus is like, I think it's more than just pantry items, right? Didn't they say they converted it, so it's kind of like, cool.
Yeah, they have even fresh food items.
They'll bring fresh
on there.
produce,
Yeah.
and they'll bring a truck with meat. And food and stuff.
Would they come to your facility?
We have a pantry there, we don't get to meat and stuff, because our pantry's just there, so people just come in,
Okay,
because they do it in town,
yes.
real close, right, so they can go set up some basically more like emergency, they just need to come and get something, but they're in town twice a month. Some months it's 3 times there. We go to Churchwell Park, New Jerusalem Church, and Mount Joe Drive. And in the summer, a lot of times they'll go downtown on Market Street and out in the Thames. They'll be out there. Then they do a special projects if you got something going on also. Very talented.
We also talked about how we have a second location where we meet with our students at Celestia Artisans. She's going to talk to the artisans because she's thought about working with them in the past, and that would benefit not just our students, but also others that utilize the artists as well. So that would be fantastic here and the artisans.
It's a wonderful program.
It really is.
It was really exciting, just talk with her, you can just tell she's very.
She got more energy than she ought to.
She's definitely passionate about what she does. I mean,
Yeah, I
it's easy
know
to get
that
excited
girl.
about.
Okay, so moving on to new business. Item A is a resolution to approve the awarding of high school diplomas to following successful completion of graduation requirements as set forth by the state of Ohio. As you can see, we have a long list this month, the longest of the school year. So I'm going to not read all those at this time, but you can see those students' names who have graduated. Item B is a resolution to approve a second amendment to employment agreement with Sherry Beckley effective June 6, 2022 through July 31st, 2022. Item C is a resolution to approve Exhibit A, which is job descriptions and responsibilities and duties for the following positions: food services administrative assistant, transcript entry, student success plans and meeting support, attendance specialist, CBI coordinator, CBI supplemental, and ESL coordinator / Spanish interpreter. So for these positions, we either did not have a job description or we needed to adjust the one that we had. So that's why we're bringing these to your attention for approval this evening, and there are copies in the folder. And then item D is a resolution to approve a renewal contract for final forms through NOACA for the 2022-2023 school year. And finally, this has brought a lot of excitement here lately. Item E is a resolution to approve the mascot for the school to be the Townsend Community School Thunder. So we gathered a lot of student feedback. We narrowed it down to 3 options. There was the Thunder, there was the Legends, and there was the Galaxy. And each of those had some connections as to why they would make sense with Townsend. So we put those out there for vote for students and for staff. And a little bit over 50% of votes came back for the Townsend Community School Thunder. So we would like to move forward with your approval, being known as the Thunder, and we're going to do some exciting things with that if approved for next year for our open house and continue to build a lot of school spirit and excitement with that.
That was a great project.
It's
Great
been fun.
undertaking.
Yep.
That's wonderful. Very good. Do you have any questions on anything? Ryan, I guess what I wanted to be sure that you were satisfied with final forms, and I know we went to that as. Okay.
But yeah.
So you've been satisfied.
We've been satisfied. And actually, most of the schools are utilizing final forms now, so it's a good program.
Good. Is there a motion to approve action items A through E of the superintendent's report? Moved by Dora, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Jackie. Any questions or discussion? If not, we'll have the roll, please.
Mrs. Grant? Mrs. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
I have no further business to bring before the board. We have nothing else on the agenda, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Israel. Seconded by Dora. All in favor, signify by saying aye. No one's opposed, so we